I was watching a minister, and he was, matter of fact, no, I'm sorry. I was watching YouTube, I'm sorry, and they were talking about comic books, Thanos, villain in the MCU universe, Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. They were talking about a storyline that had happened where he became so powerful that he was able to challenge the character, the one above all, who was essentially God in the Marvel Universe, and absorb him. What was interesting was something that the content creator of that channel said, that even though the one above all was supposed to be all powerful, he put rules in place that even he couldn't supersede. Now, I thought about that, and you know how they say, art imitates life, life imitates art. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but if art imitates life, I'm of the Christian faith, or how Western civilization believes in God. If you believe anything in the book of Genesis, in the Bible, it talks about how God created everything. Though He is all-powerful, all-knowing, and is everywhere at the same time, with all the three omnis, yet he's so holy he can't be in the presence of sin. So when the serpent, who Lucifer or the devil, beguiled Eve and tricked her into eating the apple, sin was born, essentially. And this got me thinking, well, once sin arose, they had to leave the Garden of Eden immediately. When they were in the garden, they were in God's presence. God can't be around sin, so they had to leave God's presence. And it got me to thinking, well, here's a rule that God put in place that even He cannot circumvent, per se. Sin is sin, and God is holy, and they don't. Though, if you know the story, here's a spoiler for those who've never read the Bible, God becomes a man. Excuse me. And as a man, He was able to still be God and still be man, and somehow circumvent this rule. But I found it interesting that God is not a man that He cannot lie, which is scripture. So He can't lie, and He can't be around sin. What is sin? Now, if God's will, His own will, was in the beginning just to speak everything into existence, create this world and create man, to go against the will of God is essentially what sin is. What did God ask of us in the beginning? God asked of Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree. That was pretty much it. There were no 10 Commandments at this time. There were no other laws or rules or statutes or anything to follow in the garden. It was essentially the perfect world. Everything was provided for them. They had jobs like naming animals and tending to the garden. So they were given purpose. Adam and Eve had each other, so Adam wasn't lonely. A being that was like him. But yet, there was a serpent in the garden. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because the serpent, as we know, is Lucifer. Lucifer is the devil, but in heaven he was an angel. and he was called Lucifer. And as you know, he was a high appointed angel. And for some reason, which I don't believe that the Bible details of what possessed him to one day just decide that he was better than God, he deserved to sit on the throne of heaven. And a war sprung out, and he was cast out of heaven. Where he was casted out would essentially be Eden once God spoke everything into existence. Now, they never said the world didn't exist. They just said it was a void, a dark void, formless of shape, but it was something there. God created that void, that nothingness of darkness, and shaped it and called it what it was. And then he placed Adam and Eve there, knowing that this is where Lucifer lies. Remember, sin is going against the will of God. Lucifer went against God in heaven and was casted out. But yet, he placed him right where he would eventually leave us. I just find it interesting that some theories that I may have had of my own about some of God's intentions when it came to certain things in certain scriptures, when it talks about God being responsible for certain evils, whether the people say that he doesn't do it, but he allows things to happen for certain reasons. I kind of believe that it's both. He does do it, and he has his own reasons, he has his own purpose, and it has his own design. When you think about it, you can't define one thing without the other in certain cases. Like if you would say how people would consider something to be good, it only has its definition of good if it's compared to its counterpart, evil. I feel like, and I could be wrong, this is just my own theories, that you don't know what good is until there's evil, and vice versa. Things have to be a certain kind of way for something to be called something, or to get its true definition when it has a counterpart to challenge it. Now, some people, they don't want to think of God as the one who's responsible or could cause something bad or evil, but why else would he put them in the garden with the tempter? Knowing what he's capable of, if he could defy God in heaven, what would he do with us? I mean, we're mortal, or at least we're mortal now. It was believed that we could live forever if we would have stayed in the garden, if it never happened. Though I've heard that, scientists have studied the body, and to this day, as far as I know, no one can explain why we die. So it seems like the way the body regenerates itself and cells continuously keep growing and growing. Why does it stop eventually? Why does it slow down? Or why do we get sick? It kind of doesn't make sense for how our biological makeup is. Yet, we die. We're fragile. Humanity is seen as fragile. And when you think of what we know God to be, in comparison, yes, we're very fragile. So to put us in a place where we don't know the devil, we don't know the tricks, we don't know anything. He wasn't even in the form of something you could recognize right off the bat as Satan or Lucifer. Though I may have derailed a little bit from my original point of the paradox the paradox of being all powerful, but yet still bound to a rule or law that you created. Like you said, now though granted, Jesus, who was the Son of God, was able to kind of circumvent that law. There was a void between God and his creation, and that void that kept us apart is sin. Like I said, God can't be around sin, so he can't be around his people. But to send God to earth as a man, it almost circumvented that void, and he was able to bring humanity back to God. The long short of it. Though I know, not everyone believes in God or believes in at least this version of God. People have their own faiths and beliefs, and that's fine. It still questions. It still kind of begs the question, though, how much we actually know. I mean, we have a Bible, and each faith, I presume, has their own book. If you follow the Islam faith, they have the Quran. And Jewish people have the Torah and things of that nature. But these are essentially books. Now, they are written by men. Not to say that they're not God inspired, but when it comes to knowing God in its entirety, we have a book, and that's it. We can't say that we know God in its entirety. It's just so much. We don't even understand the world that he created in its entirety yet. As we can discover new species of things, or discover new things about ourselves, our bodies, our environment, the secrets that the earth held as far as minerals and things of that nature. We haven't scratched the surface of how we evolve and change. And like I said, we don't know why we die, things of that nature. We haven't even gotten past the things he created. How could we possibly understand him now? For those that don't believe, then these probably aren't questions that you ask yourself. But myself personally, I don't think that we can confidently say that we know who God is. Here's a good example. Jesus lived for 33 years. Now, mind you, Jesus was a man, but he was also God. And he did a lot of great things, right? But he only lived for 33 years. And the things that he did are chronicled in the Bible, but it wasn't his entire life. They only spoke of one instance as him as a child. We don't know him as a teenager. We just go from young boy to grown man, going into his ministry, changing the world, doing miracles. And I heard one person say that he died before his full potential, but though his purpose was fulfilled. Now, God does give everyone purpose. Purpose is what I believe that God intends for you to do, what he made you to do. And potential is essentially the things that you're able to do. Everyone has the potential to be a good student or has the potential to be athletic or fit. You just have to work at it. But your purpose is God-given. It's something special, and you didn't do anything. It was literally a gift. And no matter how much hard work it is, you can't get it. You can craft it once you got it and make it better, true, and hone it, but it's a gift. Jesus fulfilled his purpose. We're only 33. Imagine if he had lived to be 66 or 99. The things that he could have done, moving the way he moved, his relationship with the Father, and his relationship with the Holy Spirit, the things he could have shown people on earth, the things he did in this short ministry, which was like only 3 years of his adult life. He did things that the world had never seen before. I guess what I'm saying is that we don't know God like how we believe we know Him. We have some knowledge with the testimonies of these individuals that was written in the Bible. And it does paint a picture, and it gives you a good idea of the things that He wants for us and the things that He values most. But to say that we truly know God, we're not even close. It's not like everything that ever happened was written in this book. We only have certain instances in the Jewish history of God. That's it. And then there's also the controversy about, certain things were included or excluded for whatever reasons, and that whole jazz. But even if nothing was excluded as far as what was actually written or debated, we still wouldn't, I don't know, a fraction of who God really is. I believe in prayer. I do believe that in prayer we ask for God, whether you ask, for a loved one to be healed, or you ask for your situations to change, or problems you're going through, help you become a better person. I believe in all that. I believe prayer is a real thing. I believe in God, and I believe that it's access when you pray. And I feel like that was Jesus' purpose, is to bring us closer, and now we have access to God. But to say that we fully know Him is almost disrespectful. The book of Job, as people know the story of Job, of just a man who was righteous before God, the devil challenges God that his righteousness will leave him, or he'll turn his back on you if you just take the things he has. Job was a very wealthy man. He had a large family. He had a lot of cattle. He was probably one of the richest people in the Bible in his time. And God agreed to the terms of the devil, but you can't take his life was the only thing that was off the table. So he was able to take his family away from him. He took all his money away from him. He lost everything, his estate, everything. He even lost some of his health, but he lived. Even his wife died. And he stayed true for the most part. He stayed true. But he wanted answers. He wanted to know why God was allowing these things to happen to him. And when God finally does respond, He talks about His creation, which is interesting. Why would He bring up the things that He made? Because we don't know God. We don't fully understand God. I believe He's too vast for us to understand. And the Bible gives us a glimpse of who God is and a glimpse of His will for our lives. But it's not the whole picture. We won't know until we actually are standing face to face with our Creator. So, when people will question your faith, they'll question the belief system, and they say, well, if God is so powerful, why didn't He just destroy the devil, things like that. And these questions, and I understand where the questions come from, though, in all honesty, it's not that important. Things have to be tested. They say iron sharpens iron, but things are met at its merit when it is tested against something. Like I said, what is good without evil? There's no measure. There's no measure. There has to be a counterpart. So when you say things like, why doesn't God just destroy the devil? He's actually needed as a device. Adam and Eve fell in the garden because they were living in bliss, but didn't know what bliss was. There was no definition of good. Everything was good. God Himself said that it was good. Everything He created was good, including man. But there was no definition for man. There was nothing to meet it. How do you know something is good if there's not evil to test it? God made the parameters, but yet God himself couldn't supersede the parameters he made. That is a paradox. When you think about a being of all power, unless it was intentional. What is good without evil? In the Bible, it actually says that I put before you good and evil, and he says to choose good. But the fact that he places both options in front of you. There was no sin until Eve bit the apple. Then Adam bit the apple. There was no sin. There was nothing to compare it to. So there is a necessity in the things that happen to us, I guess. This doesn't change God, though. And this is the part that I don't really talk to people about, because it's my own personal beliefs, it's my own theories. And I don't think everyone would understand it, and not to trip anybody up. But there's a necessity in the bad things, the things that we consider bad. We're finite, you know. We call something evil or bad in the cases of things that we don't like, or things that make us uncomfortable or scare us. Not everything fits that category. Some people will say, you know what, exercise can be evil because I like eating this way, I like living this way, I don't want anyone telling me how to eat, da, 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 da. But that doesn't make it evil. It's just something you don't like, and you don't want to do it. When people disobey, it's out of that nature. I don't want to be told what to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that the things that are being told to that person is evil or wrong. In that case, we have laws that we obey. People break the laws. They just don't want to do it. I see this food here. I don't want to pay for it. I'm going to take it because I'd rather keep my money. We have laws, we have rules, and people break them. That doesn't mean that because they don't want to do it. I don't want to do that, or it's just uncomfortable. I could cross to the corner, but I could cross here too, and I get over there quicker. Though technically this is a law. I don't want to do that. But at the same time, does that make it wrong? Does it make it evil because you don't want to do it? Or I just don't feel like doing it. When it comes to the matters of, say, commandments and breaking the commandments, we come up with all sorts of reasons to not do what God wants us to do. But it doesn't make God wrong for putting that in front of us. And initially it was, if God loves someone, how would you know if they loved you if you made them love you? So there has to be a choice. So you could bite that apple or you could stay with me. A choice has to be placed there. God didn't want robots. I assume he didn't want creatures he can just, you know, Geppetto. He wanted creatures to love him back, or at least acknowledge that he's responsible for their whole well-being. So he had to place them where temptation was. And though, granted, we fell to temptation and will continue to fall to temptation, we do rise to the occasion. And to redeem something, there has to be a redeemable quality about it. And I feel like that's how God sees us. He sees the redemption in us. And though we do fall, he's willing and patient to wait for us to come back and come back and come back. Fall, come back, fall, come back. But it doesn't make God evil for putting these things out there. Though we may not understand it, though we may not like it or choose it, because there are true evil things in this world and true atrocities that we can all agree on that are what they are. There's no blurriness, there's no opinion on it. And I believe God knows about all these things. And so most people would say, well, if God is so loving, why does he allow bad things to happen? It's the same answer. These things are necessary. They're necessary, or we don't fully understand what they are. And you can literally live in perfection in a place designed to sustain you forever and not even know or appreciate where you are until someone hands you an apple.